On today's Fit to Eat, I'll be preparing blackened chicken with apple, almond, quinoa, and Creole mustard greens. Our guest is Larry Stephenson, owner of Southern Cultured Orchards and Nursery and self-described fruit explorer. We're going to take a trip to another apple orchard in Northeast Mississippi, and registered dietitian Rebecca Turner is going to tell us about the difference between whole fruit and fruit juice. It's going to be a great show, so stay tuned. Welcome back to Fit to Eat. I'm your host, Rob Stinson. Today's guest is the owner of Southern Cultured Orchards and Nursery, Larry Stephenson. Larry, it's great to have you on the show.
It's good to be here, Rob.
All right, well, we're going to have a little fun today. I'm just going to give a quick, brief overview. We're going to make a salt-free blackened seasoning and actually cook some chicken. Then from that point on, we got a lot of apples going on. I figured it'd be appropriate. And what we're going to do also is show people how to make a simple side dish called quinoa, which is a neat cereal grain that's high in protein. And that's where I'm going to start real quick. So let me start this pan right over here. And all we do, I'm going to put in some natural salt-free vegetable stock and then pour in the quinoa cereal grain. We're going to bring that up to temp, cover it, and it kind of is one of those things we don't even have to really worry much about. So come on over here and we'll get more involved, because I'd love to hear how you got started with the apple orchard, because it's a great story.
Yeah, I started off fruit growing because I was a deer hunter. I hunted deer and turkey.
Imagine that.
Yeah, like most people do in rural Mississippi. Deer season only lasts 4 months long, so what do you do the rest of the year? You plant food plots to attract more deer and turkey onto your property. So, of course, I wanted my deer and turkey to have tasty fruits and nuts to eat, so I started planting standard varieties to attract them. And after a few years, the fruit growing got more interesting than deer hunting. I'd sit on the deer stand, all I could think about what I needed to do in my orchard. So finally, I just got down and worked in my orchard, and that made me happier than the hunting.
Well, that's great, though. It really is. So let's do this real quick here. This is a salt-free blackened seasoning, so we're going to start with some onion and garlic powder, no salt. White pepper, black pepper, and I do this quickly. We've done this before on the show. Sage, ground sage, cayenne pepper, got to give it a little spice. Lots of paprika, and some fresh ground basil as well. And then I'll be mixing this up, because what we're going to do is, and you're going to see, I made one little small piece of chicken, and guess who that one's for?
That's probably mine.
That would be yours, so you can sample this when we get done. But let me go ahead and initially what we're going to do, and really easy to do, we're going to kind of coat the chicken, both pieces, and that paprika is really what spurs it on to blacken, and then turn it, and do the same thing on the other side. And I want to kind of get this on the pot quickly, because it's going to take, that one chicken breast is kind of thick. It's going to take some time. Now, this pan is hot, and it's about ½ a teaspoon of oil, so we keep the oil at a minimum. And then place that chicken away from you, and you'll see it'll start to smoke pretty darn quick. All right, there we go. So we got that going, and that's probably great. We've got the quinoa going and all. But let's talk a little bit more now, all right? So I know, and we could talk all day about mulberries, but I'm going to make you focus on apples today.
Okay.
And we took the liberty of bringing, and thank you for bringing some of yours in. I've never seen apples of all the varieties that you're so familiar with. So talk a little bit about the two that we've got here between the Collie and the Henderson.
The Collie is an apple that from Grenada, Mississippi, so it is a native Mississippi apple. Grown a lot during the 1800s, kind of fell out of favor when we started importing apples from the rest of the country. It's a great big green apple. They'll actually get about twice that size. Some people call it is a keeping apple and improves after storage, but every one I've eaten fresh off the tree is delicious. Hard, you know, but it's a good apple. It's a very productive tree. Heavy crops, pretty fast. So
is it kind of on the tart side then, would you say?
More on the sweet side, but it's got enough tartness and complexity in there to make it interesting, you know. But
That's
I
awesome.
like mostly the sweets.
Interesting. Okay, now, I'm going to actually cut apart this Henderson apple. You tell me now you've never actually cooked with one.
This is my first crop.
All right, well, you know what? I love that. Talk a little bit about how the Henderson came to be then.
Henderson belongs to my neighbor, Paul Henderson. It's just an unknown apple from an old tree that's been growing in his yard a long time. The original tree was cut down recently, but before it was, he had me propagate that tree by grafting. So I have several Henderson apple trees.
Okay, now wait. Let's talk about something you just said, grafting. So what does that entail?
Grafting is a surgical procedure, really. It's plant surgery. You take a piece of the variety that you want, 1-year-old wood, a little stick about as long as your finger, and you'll surgically attach that to a bottom part, the root system of another plant, and that'll grow you a new tree. So when you grow a plant from seed, it will have the DNA of both parents. It's not going to be exactly the same. So the only way you can do that is by asexual propagation, cloning, in effect. And you use that little bit of plant surgery to keep the variety true. It's the only way. Because you could plant that seed and it would never, ever be the same as the parent.
So we're actually pioneering cooking with Henderson apples, I can say safely.
First time they've ever been done. It's an unknown variety.
Well, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to keep the chicken is going to sit over on the side because we got such a good crust on it. Our quinoa, if you don't mind, I'm going to stir this just a minute here. And you can see it's looking just fine, and we don't really need to do much with it. So I'm going to turn the heat down on that and just let it kind of sit. So now we can kind of focus in on what I'm going to do for the quinoa, because we're going to add that to what we're cooking here. So first things first, another ½ teaspoon of oil, very low. And then I'm going to take, and we're going to see how these little apples are going to cook.
We'll find out.
Yep, I think they're going to be great.
The characteristic for a good cooking apple is the one that holds its shape while you're cooking and doesn't fall apart. If they fall apart, we call them applesauce apples.
Hey, I got some applesauce we're using later. All right, garlic in here, diced onions, a little black pepper. So this is going to be kind of a savory version of apple.
Black pepper goes well with apple.
And I love to sear peas. We're going to throw a few more of those in a little bit. And I tell you what, people watching out there will never, ever remember all of these recipes. You can go to mpbonline.org/fit-to-eat to find the full recipe for everything else that you're seeing here. So I'm going to kind of get these apples, and I want to keep them crunchy. You know what I mean? So they'll have kind of a fun texture. And I have kind of cheated here. So I've got the cooked quinoa, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it. Quinoa is about 5 times more protein than rice per weight. So it's actually, they call it probably the super protein of all of those type starches and grains. Barley, wheat, and quinoa, all in the same family of cereal grains. So I like it. And it's a great way to add in a little bulk into your diet, but adding in a lot of protein. And I tell you what, these are looking really good. They're holding their shape great. Perfect, huh?
Most varieties, every variety has a certain amount of time you need to cook it. And you cook it 1 minute and 39 seconds, and it's solid, and it'll stay that way. 1 second or 2 seconds more than that, and it falls to mush. So, and every variety is different. So it takes some experience cooking them.
Well, I tell you what, I like what we're seeing here. I've got a little bit of white wine, and the fancy word deglaze a pan, all it really means is get some liquid to pull all the flavor off the edge of the pan, and it's going to actually help thoroughly cook all the rest of the food as well. What I'm going to do is actually now put the quinoa right in the pan, and toss it all through. When this goes on the plate, and you can see I made quite a bit of it, so that way you get to try some of this as well. Because at this point in time, we're gonna take a short break and visit an apple orchard in Northeast Mississippi where Stacy Russell boasts over 100 different varieties of apple that he's grafted himself. And he's gonna show us exactly what grafting an apple looks like. Take a look.
The best orchard always, I think, faces the southeast because the sun in the morning dries them out. Very few people have apples. I don't know if anybody's got 10 apple trees. And I have 500 with 100 varieties.
This is the most extensive apple orchard in the whole state of Mississippi. As you can see, as we look down the orchard, there's all different varieties and all different sizes and types.
These two apples are called the Riley apple. Charles Riley planted the seed. They're not a real big apple, but you can see by the tree there's, plenty of them. These two apples here, I call them the bean apple. They were brought from Alabama, and they've been in Itawamba County ever since 1880. I don't know what this is, but looks like a good apple to me. Look at it. That is a good apple. My daddy was an expert grafter, did a lot of grafting for Mississippi State, some seminars. He taught me how.
What we have here is an apple tree that Mr. Russell grafted just earlier this year. We collect our scion wood, and then we'll cut it into pieces about 6 inches long, and it has 3 buds on it. And then we insert this graft into our rootstock as this, and we let it take its union and join together, and then it will take off and grow as this one has done here. Most all of the apples that are here at Mr. Russell's place are very old apples, and a lot of them aren't sold at your local stores. You have to go to private growers that are growing these older heirloom varieties.
A lot of times I'll get an apple just because I know it's old. There's only about 20 varieties you can buy at the store. The Red Delicious, what's the one, Honeycrisp. It tastes good, but you can't grow it around here. Pink Lady, you can't grow. But there's so many different kind of apples.
Kynard and Keepsake and Buckingham. One of the most famous ones he has here is called the Cawley apple.
This tree here is a Cawley apple. They're a big apple, and it came from a fellow named Cawley down at Grenada, Mississippi.
We grow Cawley at our research station that we took from cuttings here, and they also do very well in Tupelo. It is survived back as the very early 1900s.
This is a Virginia wine sap. So you don't find many prettier trees. It's a wine sap, but a redder color to it.
Some of the other ones are even survived back into the 1800s in this part of the state.
Okay, this is the oldest apple right here. It's a Roxbury, but it's a real old apple and has a real thick coat on it.
Some of the reasons why people might want to graft a tree is that they are trying to carry on their family trees. Some of these that he has got cuttings of and he's growing, he's the only person really in Mississippi that's even growing those. And so he is carrying on the legacy and carrying on the heritage of these plants by continuing them.
I'm in it to learn and enjoy myself, and I like to grow stuff.
Welcome back to Fit to Eat. If you're just joining us, Larry Stephenson and I are right in the middle of preparing today's recipe. And Larry, I tell you what, you are the self-proclaimed fruit explorer. Mm-hmm. You gotta explain that to me and to everybody out there.
I'm not the only one. There's a group of us, and we're somewhat organized. Fruit explorers are the folks that go out and rediscover the old homestead and heirloom varieties of fruit, which many have become extinct now. Once you started bringing in the standard varieties and everybody goes to the grocery store for them, we stopped growing the old varieties of fruit. But we think a lot of them are worth trying again. And we experiment with exotic fruit. Sometimes you can bring in plants from Asia or Russia or Europe, And you can outrun their native pests and diseases, so you can grow them carefree without any spraying here, which is a huge advantage.
Well, and you know, it's interesting you mentioned about spraying. I want to see if we can get a close-up on this apple, and we're going to be making a chutney, kind of an apple raisin chutney. But on this apple, if most people were to see this apple in the store where it's got little holes, there you go, that's a great view. That's one of the Collie apples that Larry grows. You'd think, I don't want it. And I thought it was very interesting in talking to people, when you go to a farmer's market and you see a product like this, that's a great thing to see, isn't it? Because at that point, you know they haven't sprayed it with pesticides.
Unsprayed fruit is just not going to be perfect. Eat ugly apples is what we say. Cut the spots out, because American consumers judge with their eyes, not their taste buds, unfortunately. And you cannot judge a fruit by the way it looks. All the fruit you see in a grocery store is going to be big, it'll be huge, it'll be beautiful, and it'll be ready to eat right there off the rack. Most of you good varieties aren't like that. You know, they're not going to be perfect. You know?
Right. And I beseech people to go out and find the closest farmer's market as opposed to just run into their superstore. Because like you said, people want that big, beautiful, but it isn't necessarily the best, huh?
No, it's been sprayed. It took a lot of trouble. It took a lot of management to get perfect-looking fruit to the grocery store. And what you see at the grocery store is 1/3 or 1/4 of the actual crop. The rest of it was rejected. It's not pretty enough.
That's a shame,
That's a waste.
That's a shame, and that's the truth of it all. Well, let's go ahead. I'm going to start off on making, and I've got some diced apple, kind of similar in look to your Collies, and then we're going to add in some beautiful raisins. This is kind of a flavorful chutney. Apple sauce, kinds of thickens it in a nice liquid form. And a little actual apple cider, and that's apple cider vinegar that I put in there because I want this to have a nice tartness, because we are going to be adding honey. So we put in our honey, and obviously, you know, there's a lot of ingredients going in. Go to mpbonline.org/fit-to-eat, and you can get these recipes. So honey, now some green onion in there. And now, kind of my favorite little nutmeg and cinnamon. And the last is curry of the dry seasonings. A lot of stuff in this one. And then minced onion. And a little bit of our minced fresh garlic. And we're going to stir that all up. Quite the concoction, huh? We're experimenting with new apples. I hope this is experimenting with some new flavors for you, too.
I love Indian and Asian spices.
Yeah, and I tell you what, blended together with the apple and the difference of all the flavors in this, I think is going to make for a really good chutney. And when this goes in, this will be on our plate. I'm going to put it on the side so that someone can eat it as they like it. But that flavoring on this should be wonderful. And chutney is just a blending of sweet and tart, thick and thin. And I love the idea of getting something that can go along with the blackened chicken that'll give it a little moisture and a little added flavor. So where we're going to go with this recipe next is I've got a very unique way of doing turnip greens, and I know that you've seen greens probably throughout your life. We're going to do these, though, where Creole turnip greens are typically cooked for hours. I'm doing these to where the turnip green's going to keep a bright and vivid green color and kind of sear them in a hot oil pan to where they're very different than what you might be used to. Before we go to break, mulberries.
Mulberries.
Oh my gosh. I wish I'd have known and I'd have done something, because most people out there don't have a clue how tasty mulberries are.
Mulberries are the most underrated fruit it is. And they're native and people don't even recognize them. They ask me all the time, why? They look like blackberries. And people say, why are these blackberries growing on a tree? Is it poisonous? No, it's a native mulberry. They've grown here for thousands of years.
People just don't simply know about them now.
They just don't. And it's common. Nearly everybody has a mulberry tree growing in their backyard. They're male and female sexes. Only the females will have fruit. If you got an old tree with no fruit, it's a male.
Interesting.
Mulberries are delicious. Mulberries taste pretty much like blackberry, but the big cultivated varieties of blackberries that they have now, they also have a big seed. They're delicious, but they got big seed. And mulberries have tiny little crunchy seeds. So
And I love them.
you don't have. I love mulberries.
I love the flavor. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break and check in with registered dietitian Rebecca Turner. She's got some great information about eating fruit versus drinking fruit juice. You'll be surprised at the nutritional differences. Check it out.
Will an apple a day keep the doctor away? Maybe, but choosing whole fruit over fruit juice is more likely to keep the dentist away. Children and adults love that fruit juice is tasty and refreshing, but it doesn't measure up to its whole fruit counterparts. When a whole fruit is pressed or squeezed to make juice, the fiber and the water-soluble vitamins, they get lost in the process. While 100% fruit juice is not completely void of nutrients, it still lacks the goodness found in fruit's skin, flesh, and pulp. If you still choose to provide fruit juice at home, keep these recommendations in mind. Children ages 1 to 3, they should be limited to 4 ounces of juice daily. Children ages 4 to 6 should drink only 6 ounces of juice daily. And children and adults over the age of 7 should not exceed 1 cup of fruit juice every day. Now, before bringing home any fruit juice, give its ingredients list a good check for real fruit and no added sugar. Often, you'll be surprised to find that fruit touted on the front label, it's just not found in high quantities on the back label. Remember, real fruit should be the first ingredient. Ingredients like added sweeteners, corn syrup, or even dyes, they just don't provide any benefit to your beverage. When whole fruit just won't cut it, keep these tips in mind and your fruit juice will be fit to drink.
Welcome back to Fit to Eat. I'm here with Larry Stephenson, owner of Southern Cultured Orchards and Nursery, and we're almost done with our recipe. Hadn't been too hard yet so far, huh?
No.
All right, well, let's go through, because I'm going to do what I call my own version of Creole turnip greens. I throw in some onion, get some good flavoring going in there. A lot of garlic. I like a lot of flavor.
I love garlic.
Some beautiful red, and the color of these roasted, of these bell peppers, you know, almost roast them when you're cooking them. And then a little bit of pepper. And you say you like some spicy food. I
only eat spicy food.
Oh, really? You're like me. All right, well, I'm going to throw some crushed red pepper in this one. I like to get this one kind of spicy. Now, the neat part, you heard me talk about deglazing a pan. This recipe, what I'm going to do is kind of get all these toppings that are going to be in the pan. And then as we go, I put a little bit of actual apple cider. So we're trying to keep our theme apple and a little bit of everything that we're doing here. So let's talk about at the end of the season, you've got some things left, and dehydrating fruit.
Dehydrating is a good way to use your fruit up when you have a whole lot of, you know, because some things you can keep in the refrigerator a few weeks, and other things just don't store well, you know. They're only good for a week or two. So if you have a huge crop of something like pears, apples, I'll slice them up and dehydrate them, and those usually turn out very well. Pears, especially some of the old cannon pears, if you let them soften a little bit and dehydrate them, it condenses the sugars and brings that, intensifies the flavors.
So they're almost sweeter,
They'll be like pear candy, you know.
Jeez.
It's a good way, dehydrating is a good way to use your food up without having to add salt or anything, you know.
I'm going to take that topping and move on the side. And then this is the part that's really different. That pan is good and hot right now. A little touch more oil. And I'm going to throw in my leaves right into this pan. And you can hear them popping. This is fast. And then we're going to take it. That was just that apple cider. And I want to keep them nice and crunchy. And believe it or not, that's how I like to eat them. Where it's still, we're going to pop this in there just for a second. Take our chicken, put it right onto those greens, and then add some of that beautiful topping on both sides. I can smell that crushed red pepper, so the spiciness of this should be a good one. And what I did, I made a little small plate for you so you can try a little bite there, Larry.
I'll try it.
I tell you what, that's a fun one too. One of my favorites.
Quinoa is good. I've never had it before, but that's a good grain.
Oh, isn't it? It's delicious. It really is.
The Henderson apple kept its shape well. Looks like it'll be a good cooker.
I put some toasted almonds on top of the quinoa. And I tell you what, looks like we're out of time, but I think everything turned out great. I want to thank Larry Stephenson, Fruit Explorer, for joining us today. And if you want to learn more about anything you've seen in this episode, then head over to mpbonline.org/fit2eat. And don't forget to follow and like our Facebook page. Until next time, I'm your host, Rob Stinson. Eat well.